Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is the Top Delinquent, Chapter 51, and this one is titled Smack That. Well, yes, she replied, still trying to process this information. So, you'd be my Aunty Jane? You asked. Okay, but honestly, I've only ever known you as my principal, so this is really weird. So, if you don't mind me asking, how was your mum when you saw her last? Mrs. Craig asked. Your face fell, and you looked down with sadness. Look, I'll be honest, I haven't had the best life. I assumed life wasn't wonderful, Mrs. Craig said softly. The times I had spoken with your father, my brother-in-law, he didn't sound like a happy man. Yeah, far from it, he replied with a sigh. He's a raging alcoholic and would beat me and Mum all the time. Yin, I'm so sorry, she whispered apologetically, placing a hand on your shoulder to comfort you. Sometimes I tried to defend Mum, but then she'd turn on me. She was quite emotionally unstable. Same with our mum after our biological father died, Jane Craig sighed. Unfortunately, it must be because of her influence on your mum. It's a vicious cycle. Yeah, well, Iida, Tenya, actually saved me from being beaten by Dad one night. That's why he has his arm in a sling, you admitted. Iida is a very good young man, Mrs. Craig said proudly. I know. I don't know how I got him, but I'm grateful, you said with a tender smile. You're a good person, Yin. We're from the same stock, so I understand your past. Iida is lucky to have you. You burst into tears again. No one's ever told me that they've been lucky to have me before. I'm always lucky to have someone else. Mrs. Craig teared up. Sweetheart, you are beautiful. Iida is lucky to have you, and I'm lucky to have such a wonderful niece. You sobbed harder. Mrs. Craig stayed at yours for another 3 hours as you both talked about family life and tried to connect as many dots as possible. There was no doubt that she was indeed your older sister of your mum. Yin, I've had time to think, and I would like to meet your mum again. Would it be possible? She asked nervously after you'd finished talking about everything. I've been searching for her for years. I honestly don't know. Like I said, I'd have to find out if she can have visitors, but if I can make it happen, then I'll do my best, you replied. I think it might do her good to be able to connect with you again, seeing as you've gotten your life together after what happened when you were a teenager. Mrs. Craig nodded. Yes, I'd like to at least validate her, and maybe we could somehow get closure on what happened to us regarding our stepdad. If you need a lawyer, let me know. Iida has all the connections you need. I will, Mrs. Craig said with a smile, then stifled a yawn. Oh, sorry, I tired you out, you said with a laugh. She shook her head. No, not at all, but I do need sleep. Thank you for tonight, Yin. I'm right next door if you need me. Thanks, you said with a smile, standing up and hugging her, and then seeing her off at your front door. Oh my God, what a trip, you muttered to yourself in disbelief as you stumbled down the hall to bed. Imagine that. My principal is my long-lost auntie. You changed into your sleeping gear, and in no time you were fast asleep. The next morning, Sunday, you woke up at 1 p.m. to the sound of someone knocking on your front door, and you fell out of bed and ran to get it. Good afternoon, Yin, Iida said politely as you yanked it open. I rang your phone a few times, and when you didn't answer, I thought I would come by to make sure you were all right. She's my auntie, you suddenly blurted out, remembering your conversation from last night with Mrs. Craig. I beg your pardon, Iida asked, confused. Come in, you offered, dragging him inside. Mrs. Craig is my auntie. Yin, you will need to explain, Iida said with a bewildered look on his face. You sat him down and told the story of Mrs. Craig and how it all just made sense, and Iida just sat there baffled. Well, this is quite a revelation, he said, scratching the back of his head and then pushing his glasses up onto his nose. Yeah, you replied, that shocked face creeping back across your features as it all came back to you. All I have to say is that I'm here for anything that she needs. If she is related to you, then by proximity I have a duty to provide for her as well, he said valiantly. Tenya, you could honestly start up some kind of harem with that attitude, you said with a laugh. But don't you dare start collecting girls or I'll kill all them, then you, then myself. I would not dream of such a thing, Iida gasped with horror. Yeah, I know, you have your hands full with just me, right? You leered, scooting towards him on the seat and crawling up onto his lap. Yin, he stammered, face flushed as your face neared his, and then ducked to the side, pressing your nose against his neck and inhaling his masculine scent deeply. You smell good, Tenya. Starting to feel things, you whispered seductively, dropping your chest against his. As you relaxed your body down onto his, your lips met his soft neck, and his free hand caressed your side and then slid to the higher part of your hip bone, somewhere that he hadn't ventured to before. You reached to his hand and slid it around to your ass to show that he could touch you there, and he stiffened as you moved his hand. You can squeeze it if you like, you whispered against his neck, kissing up to his jaw and then kissing along it. His teeth chattered together as he started to short-circuit, Kaminari style. You giggled as he remained in a frozen state, letting you do whatever you wanted to him as his brain went to mush. Tap it a little, you whispered deviously. Give my ass a little smack. That would not be nice, he finally replied. I must treat you with care. But I like my ass being smacked, you pouted, sitting back. Why? He asked with confusion. Well, it's not just me. Many people like being smacked. What is the appeal of being smacked? He asked innocently. Look, I'll show you, you said, getting off his lap and getting him to stand up and turn around. Ready? You asked, holding your hand back. Not entirely, but if I must endure, then so be it, he replied nervously. You let your hand go and smacked him right on the side of his right butt cheek, his ass feeling very firm in your hand. Oh, that's a hard cake you have there, Tenya, you yelped, shaking your hand to rid yourself of the pain. Poor Iida. Stay tuned for chapter 52 coming tomorrow.